I scaled over 13 e-commerce brands this year alone beyond $500,000 per month in revenue just from Google Ads alone. And I'm able to do this again and again because of a systematic approach we have been able to develop working with these brands. And the beauty about this approach is that it works regardless of the niche or industry your brand is in. You need to understand that before you get to this level of scale, there's a few stages of scaling which every single brand must go through. And there's three different stages I've seen working in the background for all of these 13 brands I've been able to scale. The first stage is what I like to call the product and market analysis stage. Second stage is called the metric analysis stage, and the third and final stage is called the foundational analysis stage. Let's start off with the product and market analysis stage. So simply put, if there's not enough search volume for your products, if there's not enough search demand from your products, which you can find via the keyword planner tool, then there's no way that you're going to be able to scale your brand properly. Now, to do product and market analysis, it's fairly simple. If we go inside this e-commerce brand right here, this type of product and market analysis stage starts with you looking at two specific metrics, and these metrics let you understand where in this level of scale your brand is in. The first metric I always look at to understand this is search impression share. Second metric is click share. Now, in broader words, search impression share basically tells you how many people in the market searching for all of your products combined in a given period of time looked at your ad versus what's available in the market. So for instance, if we just open up our calculator right here, do a little bit of math, let's assume for this brand right here, and this brand already is doing roughly $1.3 million per month in revenue. So not only was it able to scale beyond 500,000, but it scaled beyond seven figures at this point. But essentially, if we look at the search impression share, it says 13%, 13.12%. If there's 100 people in the market looking for the products this brand sells, according to Google, only roughly 13% even saw their ads as of yet, which means only about 13 people out of 100 saw their ads. This is crazy because despite being at 1.3 million a month in revenue, this brand has reached only a very, very small portion of the market. This is a good sign. This means market saturation is just crossed off the list. There's not going to be a problem scaling this brand to the next level. Same thing with click share, but in this situation, it talks about the clicks, total number of clicks versus what your ads are getting. Now it says about 15%. So you can safely assume that out of these 13 people, roughly about 15 to 20% are clicking on your ads or have even clicked on your ad. So if we take the higher number, 20%, that's roughly two people out of that initial 100 that have even bothered to click on this brand's ads. This means there's still a lot of room for this brand to grow. And this is the first start of your product and market analysis. The second step for product and market analysis involves the keyword planner tool. Now, on a strategic level, what you're trying to understand with the keyword planner is what is the total demand out there for your products and how much of that demand are you generating. So for instance, if we take the keyword 3D printer and just use it as an example, we can understand that in total during this time period of maybe around September, October, total search volume for these kinds of keywords goes to over 3 million. It actually starts to go up and peaks in December at 5.6 million. These things let you know essentially if it's even possible to scale your brand beyond this 100,000, 500,000 range or not. But in addition to that, you need to also be focusing on the strategy itself during the first portion of this phase. Now, with strategy analysis, it's fairly simple. And one thing you want to understand is whatever got you to the current level of scale you're at right now, that's not the strategy that's going to get you to the very next level. Because if we look right here, if we go back to this account, which is at $1.3 million per month, we can see that in total, there's a handful of campaigns running at this time, 16 different campaigns, all based around certain strategies, all based around a certain kind of segmentation approach, which we have taken. But one thing we did do is we focus on the specific campaign approach, which is known to work for this brand. This is what separates a $500,000, $1 million a month brand versus those that are barely scraping by. So for instance, if we now look at another brand right here, for example, this one, which is not really at this level, but it is starting to get to that level in the last 30 days, it's at 50,000. First and foremost, we see a strategy that's fairly simple, only 5 different campaigns. The budgets are much, much lower, but at the same time, there's no type of advanced approach or advanced strategy here. And that's because these campaigns right here have not really proven themselves to be able to get to the next level of scale. If we look right here at this chart, we can see there's a little bit of ups and downs going on at the moment. Some days it goes up to $2,000, other days it barely is crossing $50. So the key distinctions between a brand at $100,000 a month or less versus the brand that's at $500,000 or more is number one, budget distribution. Number two, product segregation itself and the product segregation approach. Let's start talking about budget distribution. Now, if you want to do $500,000 a month, if you want to do more than that per month just from Google alone, you need to have a decent amount of budget that you're spending on a day-to-day basis. But even to get to that level first, you need to ensure that you have incorporated an 80-20 rule within your ad account, which says 80% of your budget should be going towards cold traffic campaigns, whereas 20% of your budget should be for retargeting. That's the same exact approach we have implemented here from the start when this brand was not at this level, when it was much below $500,000 per month in revenue. In addition to that, your product segregation strategy, it should not be minimum. What I mean by that is most e-commerce brand owners, what they do is they'll have maybe a few campaigns going after product collections or maybe going after product margins or just product pricing, and they have 2 or 3 different campaigns running, which basically work in their favor, getting them results, etc. But in order to scale, you need to go deep. And what I mean by that is you need to literally pinpoint products with things like low search volume. You want to pinpoint products with heavy search volume. You want to pinpoint products which have never been tested on your account before because all the other products are hogging up all these budgets. When you get into the nitty-gritty details, this allows you to now launch multiple different campaign strategies and approaches which get very granular. And the more granular you get, the more hidden kind of avenues of scale you can find. The main winning avenue of scale we found for this brand is basically separating out the underperformers from those products that have a certain product pricing and that are doing well. So certain campaigns in here have all the products were basically under $500. Others have products where it's $500 to $1,000, and then still others are between $1,000 to $5,000, so on and so forth. So now this is something we cover for a lot of the 13 brands we handle, as well as the other brands we're working with right now under my agency or marketing. Which, by the way, if you run a brand doing $1 million a year, you need extra help scaling your brand to the next level, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me, and let's see if we can potentially work together and make that happen. But essentially, launching more campaigns and horizontally scaling is one of the easiest ways to start really increasing that revenue. Now, whenever I say horizontal scaling, most brands, what they think is they need to test a bunch of different campaign types, maybe go after YouTube, demand gen, display. And what they do is instead of focusing on what's already working, they start getting very distracted. They start thinking that they have enough money now to start testing different things out. And as a result, their entire focus shifts from what's working to now testing 10 different things at once, which ultimately causes the thing that are already working to stop working. Instead, you want to do exactly what we did here. We found Performance Max to work the best here. Nothing else was really responding the best when we initially tested it. So instead of trying to force these other campaign types to work, we took a step back and we started expanding via what's already working, via these other campaign types, just more and more Performance Max, more standard shopping, and we started doing more testing within these campaigns which were already working. So for instance, we started testing around more with the asset group section. We started testing around different product strategies, landing page strategies, product titles, descriptions, etc. because this was already related to what's already working. When you start finding a little bit of success when you're already at $100,000 a month, most brand owners, they shift their entire focus just to the campaign approach and the campaign strategies. And that's not going to work because campaign strategies and the campaign approach itself, they're only as good as your back end. They're only as good as your foundation. In order to make those things better, you need to be going into your insight section and you need to be really digging through to understand what kind of keywords your brand is ranking for, what kind of competitors your brand is going after, and most important of all, which of these keywords can you incorporate into the back end for the products which are already selling. So here, I already see some of these major keywords at the top, which are for one specific product. So it would be stupid of me not to go into the product title or the product description to start adding these keywords which are getting results already within them, because this is going to now further tell the algorithm that, hey, these are the keywords that are working. The brand owner has kind of reaffirmed it by adding them to the product titles and descriptions. So let's now double down our efforts into showing more for these kinds of keywords. And that's when the algorithm really starts doubling down. That's when the algorithm really starts going after those major keywords. But this now brings us to the scaling phase. How do you get it to $500,000 and more per month? The real answer is you need to incorporate a little bit of vertical scaling as well as horizontal scaling on a more aggressive basis. Now, this brand is a perfect example right here, the one we got got to 1.3 million, because what we did is once we found some initial results initially, we started to really ramp up the budgets and at the same time start horizontally scaling, because anytime we would ramp up the budgets for some of these campaigns, their performance would decline for a few days as expected, because anytime you scale, it starts showing to a bigger and bigger pocket of the audience, and not every time is it going to do well for X amount of days. It might take 3 days to recover, 5 days, 7 days, but you don't want to be sitting around waiting for it to recover. So as a result, you want to be horizontally scaling the same day you do vertical scaling. You don't want to become way too aggressive and start scaling more often than every 4 days to every 7 days, because then this will really start destroying the algorithm, the optimization. Because keep in mind, if you're doing the scaling phase properly, at the same time, you should be optimizing the backend, and you need to give a little bit of time to pass to understand if the backend optimizations you did, if they're beneficial for the brand or if they're not beneficial. And then from there, you can scale as needed. But it is important to be aggressive when scaling vertically as well, because if you look right here, we're running in total at around $5,000-$6,000 per day in ad spend. To get to these levels, you need to be scaling maybe around 20% to 25% every 4 to 7 days, based on what your total budget is for each given campaign. And then from there, at the same time, if you're scaling horizontally, you should be adding more campaign tabs, you should be improving the product feed, the back end, and essentially going from there. But again, if you run a brand doing $1 million a year, you need extra help scaling to the very next level. Go onto my website at euromarketing.com and schedule a free call with me, and let's see if we can potentially work together and make that happen. But check out this video right here on a case study I did of a brand where we applied exactly this to scale it to multi-7 figures with Google Ads.